It cripples our foreign policy and diplomatic leverage by undercutting the moral authority that we speak in world forums as a 25% user and a 3% reserve. And in a broad national security context, and we must consider this in the broadest national security context, it undermines our future economic stability. As experienced military leaders, our conclusion is that America must take decisive action to move away from a fossil fuel-based economy, not just for environmental reasons or economic reasons, but for national security reasons. Without bold action now to significantly reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, our national security will be at greater risk. Fierce global competition, instability, and conflict over dwindling supplies of fossil fuels will be a major part of the future strategic landscape. Moving towards clean, independent, domestic energy technology lessens that danger, improves our economic security, and helps us to confront the serious challenge presented by another threat, global climate change. And let me talk about that challenge. In 2007, the CNA Military Advisory Board produced a report called National Security and the Threat of Climate Change. Its principal conclusion was that that climate change poses a serious threat to America's national security by acting as a threat multiplier for instability in some of the world's most volatile and strategically critical areas. This dynamic could likely drag the United States into future conflicts over water, energy, and other critical resources. I must acknowledge, climate change is clearly different than any other traditional military threat because there isn't a defined enemy. It isn't responding to a crisis area. We don't have a crisis timeline. We don't have the need to organize, train, and equip to meet this threat called climate change. But make no mistake, climate change has the potential to create more frequent and more intense natural and humanitarian disasters due to flooding, droughts, disease, and crop failure, and the resultant migration of huge populations of people. Right now, due to that tragic situation in Haiti, our military forces, along with those of many nations of the world, are responding to the Caribbean and to Haiti. And the massive amount of relief that is going to be sent there over the next weeks and months and literally years gives us a sense of the scale of humanitarian suffering and the tremendous amount of resources that are necessary to repair that. Imagine, if you will, in decades hence, not in the next century, but in 10 or 20 or 30 years, those scales of humanitarian crisis due to water or food shortage occurring simultaneously over wide areas of the world, and an increasing demand on the fine young men and women in uniform of this generation and generations to come. Additionally, these types of scenarios where societies and governments cannot meet the basic needs of the people cause fragile governments to become failed governments. And in this ensuing disorder and chaos, those with extreme ideas and those with terrorism on their mind surely will follow. As people get more desperate and tensions rise, regional conflicts are much more likely to happen in all areas of U.S. national strategic interest. Thus, the more instability is accelerated and intensified by climate change, the greater pressure to use our United States military and to put those future generations of young Americans in harm's way. There's still a lot of discussion, and I must say, I believe much of it misinformed, about whether or not climate change is real. And if it is real, can we really do anything about it? As military professionals, we are trained and learned by hard experience in our careers that to make decisions when faced with threatening situations, even when they were defined by somewhat ambiguous information, is really, really key. If we wait for 100% certainty, we never get it. And if you wait for 100% certainty in the battlefield, bad things are going to happen. So what we were trained to do and what we did on this military advisory board about climate change and the threat to national security was simply say this: let's look at the trends, the indicators, and the warnings of climate change, what science is telling us, and make prudent actions or recommend prudent actions for the United States to take to deal with that potentially catastrophic threat based on those trends. Not waiting for 100% certainty, because you get beyond a certain point and it is simply too late to reverse that which has happened. So, what should we do as a nation? First, we must recognize that the economy, energy, and climate change, as well as national security, are inextricably connected. Next, we need to carefully avoid the temptation to ignore these connections and simply take small steps to address narrow special interest issues. Large, interconnected security challenges require bold, visionary, and comprehensive solutions. So we call on the President and Congress for visionary leadership in this regard. We call on all Americans to make a long-term commitment to achieve economic and energy security in a carbon-constrained world. That means we have to transition to a clean energy economy now. For without swift and serious action, the U.S. will continue barreling headlong into a future of increased climate conflict, less security, and a greatly diminished quality of life. Now, the challenges inherent in this suite of issues that I've described may be daunting, especially during such times of economic recession. But our experience informs us that there's good reason for viewing this as a moment in history, as a great opportunity for the United States. Energy is the largest industry by revenue in the world. It represents, in my view, the next breakout technology center, similar to what happened over the past 20 or 30 years around the information technology revolution. Clean energy can do for America what information technology did over the past 3 decades. And I'm here in Cleveland and in Ohio today to tell you unequivocally that this is a tremendously great opportunity for Ohio. I consider myself a Buckeye, having served at Battelle as head of the Energy, Transportation, and Environment Division, as well as Vice President for Strategic Planning for Battelle. I know well from that experience the tremendous assets that Ohio brings to the table. Private research institutions like Battelle, great universities that produce the best and brightest, a tremendous technology and manufacturing base, a great world-class infrastructure, and most importantly, visionary leaders, committed communities, and a talented, dedicated, hard-working workforce that can get not just Ohio moving in this revolution of clean technology, but be a leader for the entire nation. Consider for a moment Ohio's Third Frontier Initiative. This represents an unprecedented, and I must emphasize, bipartisan commitment to create opportunity through innovation by expanding Ohio's technological strengths and promising and promoting commercialization of advanced and alternative energies. The National Governors Association said, in fact, quote, Ohio's $1.6 billion Third Frontier Initiative is a comprehensive, professionally run effort to build world-class research capacity, promote interaction between research and industry, and to commercialize research and development. Ohio is also one of the very first states to pass a renewable energy standard, one which creates much greater market certainty for clean alternative energy. This kind of certainty is what investors are looking for, a stable policy environment with some certainty that there are not risks to their future investment. On a national level, clean technology is the fastest growing sector of venture capital investment. Over $4 billion was invested in clean technology in 2008, and that was up over 50% from the year before.